For many years, man, a lot of people have been defending Bret Hart. And I understand that if you're a Bret Hart fan, you're going to defend him. I kind of get it, though. But me personally, yes, I was a fan of Bret Hart when I was a kid. But the number one thing that really annoys me when people make up excuses for Bret Hart and they don't want to face up the reality to it about this guy. And I'm not coming off as a Bret Hart hater. I'm not doing this to try to raise bait any Bret Hart fans out there to leave raging comments. This is the truth right here, man. And I think a lot of fans out there have a hard time accepting it. And my point is for many years, a lot of people's been saying that Bret Hart saved Vince McMahon. He saved the company back in 1994. Because that's when Hulk Hogan left, and WWF at the time was going through the steroid lawsuit and everything like that. And they said Vince was going to go bankrupt or whatever like that. So Vince McMahon had to play ball in order to show the company that, hey, his wrestlers are not jacked up on steroids and everything like that. So Bret Hart was definitely a how do you say, a good view for that. Like, hey, we got a guy like Bret Hart. He doesn't do steroids, and stuff like that. When you look at Bret Hart, he doesn't look like he's jacked up on steroids and anything like that. He doesn't look like he's jacked up. So Vince just used him as that. But the only reason why they put the belt on Bret Hart because Hulk Hogan was gone. The Ultimate Warrior wasn't there like that. He was gone. They didn't really have nobody else back then to fall back on. So they had to fall back on Bret Hart. They had to. You know what I'm saying? That's why they called it the new generation. Because they didn't have nobody like a Hogan there, so they had no choice but to fall back on Bret Hart. But the number one thing that really irritates me about the Bret Hart fans out there is that they said that Bret Hart was a big draw. He was a big superstar. And what I mean by that, they're saying that Bret was like on a level of a Hulk Hogan. He was on a level of a Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was on a level of those guys that was drawing big money for the company. And let me just tell y'all this, that is completely false. That is completely false. And I agree with Ric Flair said way back in 2006 or 2007 or 2005 when Bret Hart, he was a mid-carder back in, he was a mid-carder when he was a tag team. When he got the title, he didn't draw any money, that was true. But a lot of Bret Hart fans said, yes, Bret Hart was a big draw. Yes, he was a big draw like a Hulk Hogan and this and that. Okay, here's a fact. If Bret Hart was so much a big draw for the WWF at the time, then why did Vince let him go to WCW? Why did Vince let him go? Because that would be stupid to let somebody like Stone Cold Steve Austin go when Stone Cold Steve Austin is one of their biggest draws. Do you think Vince McMahon would be stupid enough to let Stone Cold contract run out and then let Austin go to WCW? No. Vince McMahon going to keep guys like Stone Cold or Hulk Hogan in his company because there are big draws. So why would he be stupid enough to let them go? The only reason why they let Hulk Hogan go because Vince felt like the Hulk Hogan character pretty much don't ran his course and everything like that. Vince probably wanted to go a different direction, try something new. But at the same time, if Bret Hart was so much a big draw, then why did Vince was stupid enough to let him go? Because Vince knew he wasn't a draw. He was not a big draw. Well, Bret was a great technical wrestler. Well, great technical wrestlers don't draw money. Chris Benoit was a great technical wrestler. They put the belt on him. Didn't draw big numbers. So what y'all talking about? he won the they put the belt on him when he beat Triple H and Shawn Michaels in the triple threat match at WrestleMania. They put the belt on him. He only had it one time. Chris Benoit was nothing but a paper champion. That's all he was. And yes, he was a great technical wrestler, but it didn't draw big money. It didn't draw. So I like Bret Hart, man, but I'm just so sick and tired of these Bret Hart fans out there making up excuses for him. It's really the Canadian fans out there. Mostly it's people from Canada that's making up excuses for him. Because if you're a real wrestling fan, man, you would know for yourself. Bret Hart was not a big draw. Yes, he had some decent classic matches. But it wasn't like, it wasn't no big draw to the company. It wasn't like Bret was taking the company to the next level. It wasn't none of that. Bret was just a regular old guy that was there. That's all he was. He was never a big draw. He never was. He was not a big draw like Hulk Hogan. If anybody sit here and say that, oh, Bret Hart was a bigger draw than Hogan and Stone Cold and The Rock, you guys are full of shit. You're full of shit. He was never looked at as that level. Never was. And never will be. Bret Hart said, I'm the best there is, I'm the best there was, I'm the best there ever will be. Well, I got one for you, Bret. You're not a draw, you will never be a draw, and you'll never, ever, ever, ever be a draw ever again. You never was a draw. You never was a draw. You just put on some decent, good matches. Yes, I'll give him that. He put on some decent, good, classic matches. But other than that, he was not no major draw. Has Bret Hart carried a company on his back as long as Hulk Hogan did? No, he hasn't. What, he went to WCW? They didn't know what to do with him. Did he drew money in WCW? No. Wait, it was the stroke. It was the stroke. It was the stroke. He still didn't draw no money before he even had the stroke. He still didn't have. People say, well, Goldberg kicked him in the head. That's what messed everything up. Well, way before Goldberg kicked Bret Hart in the head, Bret Hart still wasn't drawing big money for WCW because they didn't know what to do with him. Bret Hart don't seem to realize that he really hurted himself a whole lot more than he did Vince McMahon. When the Montreal Screwjob came on board, Bret Hart made that documentary called Wrestling with Shadow, which it was pretty good, by the way. I watched that like maybe 30 times already. Wrestling with Shadow, starring with Bret Hart. And Bret Hart saying how Vince McMahon, all of them screwed him. But what Bret Hart don't realize, looking back at that documentary DVD right now, Wrestling with Shadows, Bret Hart didn't really do himself no favors by putting that out there like that, because at the same time, yes, it was controversial. It had everybody in wrestling talking about it back in the day, back in 97, 98. But now I'm looking back at it, Wrestling with Shadows. Bret, you didn't really do yourself favors by putting that out there, because all you did was just created the Vince McMahon villain. That's what you really did. You created the Vince McMahon villain on that. When Vince McMahon saw that documentary, Vince McMahon went along with it. Vince McMahon said, you know what? Bret Hart just created the Vince McMahon villain. And Vince McMahon became a villain. And you know what? It absolutely worked. But it didn't work in your favors when you went to WCW. Now did it, Bret? Didn't do it in your favors. You went to WCW, you was treated like crap. You was treated like a mid-carder in WCW. I understand you went to WCW because they was paying more money, but you know what? You should have stayed in WWF. Oh, you would have went to WCW too. If someone offered you that much money. Not really, because before Bret Hart went to WCW, he was talking shit about Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. I wouldn't even want to work nowhere, especially if there's big top name guys in the other company that's bigger than that's big stars over there, and they already knew I talked shit about them. So I go over there. Why would I want to go over there when they heard me talk shit about me? So I'm like, no, I'm not going over there, because if I go over there, those guys are going to bury me. Those guys are going to treat me like I'm some mid-carder guy. And that's exactly what they did. He was just another guy in WCW. They put him with the NWO and everything like that. Bret didn't draw no big money in WCW. He got kicked in the head. And like what Ric Flair said, he went to WCW, didn't draw a dime, picked up his toys and went home. Does that make you a big star? And to answer your question, Ric Flair, no. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say, y'all. I'm just so sick and tired of people saying that Bret Hart was a big draw like Hulk Hogan when he never was a big draw. He was never a big draw like Hulk Hogan. He's never carried a company on his back long as he did like Hulk Hogan did. I don't ever remember hearing, oh, Bret Hart oversold Hulk Hogan's in the merch. Never once heard about that. Never once heard Bret Hart outsold Hulk Hogan in the merchandise. Never once heard that. It's all these Bret Hart retard Canadian fans out there, wrestling fans out there, that made up bullshit ass excuses for Bret Hart when they know Bret Hart is not no. I mean, yes, Bret Hart is like a big main eventer in Canada's eyes. I'm talking about the wrestler. Down there in Canada, yes, Bret Hart's like a god down there when it comes to a wrestling. He's like a Hulk Hogan in Canada. But when he's down here in America, he's looked at as a mid-carder. He's looked at as a freaking mid-carder in my eyes. Always will be a mid-carder in my eyes. But in Canada, yes, he's looked at as a Hulk Hogan in Canada. But in the States, he just looked at as another guy, who put on good matches. That's how I view Bret Hart. What do you guys think if you guys want to leave a comment or not, man? Do you guys believe that Bret Hart was a big draw when he never was a big draw? I mean, because I know some people might defend him, some not. Leave y'all comments if y'all want to. What do you guys think? Was Bret Hart a bigger draw than Hulk Hogan? I don't see no proof in that he was a bigger draw. Anyway, peace.